Let's cut out some airfoils. So once you have cut out your original piece from your printout, so I trace that onto this piece of metal. Here would be a sample of that. Cut out your first one, then you can use that to trace onto a second piece of metal, or just trace two of them, that's fine. And then we're cutting it with our tin snips, and we have different kinds of tin snips. Some that cut easily going left, it has an L on the side. Some that cut easily going right, those have an R on the side, and these just cut straight. So I'm gonna cut this and get back to you. An important note when cutting is you never wanna squeeze this all the way, because if you squeeze it all the way, and I can show you an example on a scrap here, if I squeeze this all the way, then it pinches right at that point there. And so you're gonna have pinch points all along the edge. So when you cut, don't squeeze it all the way, but just go down partially and kind of work your way through. So I've finished cutting both of them, so now I have two identical pieces. I'm gonna want to take one and glue it onto one side of styrofoam, take the other and glue it onto the other side. So I'll show you that now. So the next thing I need to do is hot glue these on. So I have my two pieces. So make sure that you kind of stack them, and this one will go on here. And I want to be as efficient as I can with my use of styrofoam, so something like that is pretty good. So I'm going to actually glue onto the bottom side of this piece of metal, and then it gets really, really hot, so you're going to need to have something to kind of press down on it. You're not going to want to push down on it with your fingers. The glue will actually melt through the styrofoam, so it helps to let it cool off just a little bit before you press it down on there. So I'm going to give it a try. So I'm pressing this down with my clippers here just because I don't want to burn my hands, just kind of making sure that it adheres. So it's looking pretty solid. Now I just need to make sure that I have this oriented the right way, because if I put it and glue it on backwards, then my airfoil is not going to be the way I want. So it actually should be oriented like this. I put this side on the bottom, and then try to get it as lined up as best you can as you glue it on there. So I've hot glued this on to both sides, and they're lined up pretty close to matching up. Now I'm in the shop here with the doors open to make sure that we have good ventilation, because melted styrofoam isn't really very good for you. So I have a foot switch here, and if we drop this down a little bit lower, then I can actually put that on the floor. So let me go ahead and do that. And then I can control that with my foot a little bit easier. So if I push this down, the wire will start to get hot. And then all I'm gonna do is just trace this. Now you can see I'm starting to cut into it. The wire's not very hot right now. So, and the wire actually will cool down as you attack the styrofoam a little bit. So I got a little piece off of that. A little bit difficult with one hand. Let me pull it off there. You don't want to grab onto this. So again, I wouldn't recommend that you come in from the point on the back side, but rather come in from the front. And then it's gonna hit this nose, and then I'm just gonna try to trace it. Now I can't really do this with one hand, so I'm gonna try to do it with two, and then I'll show you what I'm done. As you're cutting, make sure you're pulling slow, because you don't wanna break the wire. If the wire is caught on a piece of metal on the other side, then sometimes you have to peel it out and then take a look, maybe flip it over. You can see on the back side, it's not super smooth on this side, so I'm gonna have to do some sanding afterward. But the important thing is just remember that you don't want to pull too hard on this, because you don't want to snap the wire, or we are out of luck as far as using this. So I'm just about done. I've gotten pretty close, and at this point the top surface actually looks pretty good. The bottom surface is quite bumpy. I got a little parts here that I might actually want to take off with the wire cutter a little bit. But once you get it pretty close, then you can just take some coarse sandpaper and you can smooth it up really easy with the styrofoam. Please clean up all your scraps, and then you can pass on the 4-inch sheet of styrofoam. So this is where the scraps go. Yeah! We're going to pop these off, and then go back to the shop. Take your scraps with you, your airfoils with you. Go back to the shop, and then we're going to smooth this out. An effective way to sand is to put the sandpaper hard against a flat surface and then just move the block, move your airfoil on top of it, because that will help make sure that you have a smooth surface. If you try to rub the sandpaper on top of it, your fingers aren't smooth, they kind of bend and crease, so you're not really going to get a nice flat surface on this. So I'm going to do it in the opposite direction. So you shouldn't need the metal pieces anymore.